The city never stopped moving. Cars honked, people hurried, and dreams got lost between skyscrapers. But for a little girl named Lila, the world moved too fast to notice her. She was barefoot, her dress torn, and her small hands carried a bucket of flowers she tried to sell at the corner of Fifth Avenue. Every evening she stood in the same place, hoping someone would buy just one rose, enough for a loaf of bread. That afternoon she saw a black luxury car pull up near the sidewalk. The door opened, and a man in a sharp blue suit stepped out, tall, confident, with eyes that looked like they hadn't smiled in years. Everyone recognized him. Ethan Wallace, the billionaire tech mogul, the man who could buy half the city if he wanted to. But today he didn't look powerful. He looked broken. Beside him stood a small boy, maybe 6 years old, with neatly combed blonde hair and expensive shoes. The boy's eyes were sad, silent, staring at nothing. "Sir, would you like a flower?" Lila asked gently. Ethan turned, studying her face, not with annoyance but exhaustion. He shook his head. "No, thank you." Then, just as he was about to walk away, the boy tugged on his sleeve but said nothing. Not a word. Not even a whisper. Ethan sighed, kneeling to his son. "Please, Alex, just try. Say something, anything." But the boy's lips didn't move, only silence. The air turned heavy. Lila blinked, not understanding what was wrong. Ethan stood up again, his tone sharp but full of pain. "He hasn't spoken in 2 years," he said quietly. "Not since his mother died." Lila's heart softened. "Maybe he just needs a friend." Ethan frowned, not angry but curious. "A friend?" he echoed. "Do you think you can make him talk?" The girl hesitated. Her hands shook as she held the bucket of flowers. I can try." That's when Ethan, half in frustration, half in disbelief, said something that would change both of their lives. "Make my son talk, and I'll adopt you." People nearby turned their heads. The driver froze. Even the little boy looked up for a second, eyes wide with confusion. Lila's heart pounded. She wasn't sure if he meant it, or if it was just something said in anger or desperation. But for her, it meant hope. She knelt down beside Alex, her small hands trembling. "Hey," she whispered softly. "You don't have to talk if you don't want to. But maybe you can smile." The boy stared at her for a long moment. And then something changed. A flicker, small but real, touched the corner of his lips. Ethan saw it. His eyes widened. It wasn't a word, but it was the first sign of life his son had shown in years. For the first time that day, Ethan didn't look like a billionaire. He looked like a father. And Lila, the poor flower girl with nothing, had just given him the most valuable thing in the world: hope. The next morning, Ethan couldn't get that moment out of his mind. That tiny smile, that flicker in his son's eyes he thought he'd never see again. For 2 years, doctors, therapists, and speech specialists had failed. But a poor girl on the street, barefoot and covered in dust, had managed to reach him in less than a minute. Ethan ordered his driver to return to the same street corner. But when they arrived, Lila wasn't there. He waited. 10 minutes, 20. Just as he was about to leave, he heard a small, tired voice behind him. "Sorry, sir. I was late. I had to get more flowers." Ethan turned. There she was, small, thin, holding her bucket of wilted roses like it was the most precious thing in the world. "You came back," he said softly. "You told me to make him talk," she said with a shy smile. "I haven't finished yet." Ethan looked at her, almost embarrassed by his own words from yesterday. He hadn't meant them, not really. But now he wasn't so sure. He knelt down next to his son. "Alex, this is Lila," he said quietly. "She's your new friend." Lila sat cross-legged on the sidewalk. She took out one of her crushed roses and handed it to the boy. "It's not perfect," she said, "but I saved it just for you." Alex looked at the rose. then at her, then back at his father. Still silent. "That's okay," she whispered. "You don't have to talk yet. We can just play." She pulled a small piece of chalk from her pocket and began drawing little flowers on the pavement. Alex hesitated, then took the chalk from her hand. For the first time, he drew something, a small stick figure of a girl with messy hair. "That's me?" Lila giggled. Alex smiled. Ethan's throat tightened. He hadn't seen that smile in years. For the next few days, Lila came every afternoon. She told Alex stories about clouds that could sing and flowers that could dance. Sometimes she'd hum softly, a tune she remembered from her mother before she lost her. And slowly, Alex began to respond, not with words but with gestures. He laughed once, then twice. Then one day he whispered a sound, barely audible, but enough to make Ethan freeze. La. Ethan blinked. He thought he imagined it, but Lila gasped, eyes wide. "You said my name," she cried. "You did it, Alex." Ethan knelt down beside them, tears welling up in his eyes. He cupped his son's face, voice trembling. "Say it again, buddy, please." But Alex just smiled, shy, small, proud. And then he hugged Lila. It was the first time since his mother's death that he'd touched anyone willingly. Ethan turned away for a moment, hiding his tears. That evening he found Lila sitting alone on the sidewalk, hugging her knees. He noticed her shoes, unworn, falling apart, and her fingers, bruised from carrying the flower bucket every day. "Where do you live?" he asked gently. Lila hesitated. "I don't really have a home," she said softly. "Just the shelter sometimes." Ethan stared at her, guilt hitting him like a wave. This little girl had done more for his son than anyone else, and yet she had no one. Lila looked at the hand, clean, strong, and warm, and slowly placed hers in his. Tears rolled down her cheeks as Alex ran over and hugged her from behind. And just like that, the poor flower girl's world began to change, one heartbeat at a time. The mansion stood tall against the golden horizon, a world away from the cracked sidewalks where Lila used to sell flowers. When she first stepped inside, her heart pounded. The floor gleamed like mirrors. The air smelled like roses, and real ones, not wilted. It felt like another planet. Ethan watched her carefully, afraid she might feel out of place. But when she spotted Alex waiting in the hallway, holding a toy in both hands, her nervousness melted away. He ran to her and held up a small wooden airplane. "I made this for you," he whispered, his voice trembling, but clear. Lila gasped, covering her mouth. "You talked again?" Ethan's throat tightened. It was official now, his son was speaking. All because of her. The next few weeks were like a dream. Lila had her own room, a small, bright space filled with books and soft blankets. She helped Alex read at night, laughed with him in the garden, and listened to Ethan's stories about the stars. She felt safe, loved. But not everyone in the house shared Ethan's warmth. One morning, as Lila passed through the grand hall, she overheard two maids whispering. "She's just a street girl," one said. "Mr. Reed's lost his mind, bringing her here. They say he promised to adopt her," the other replied. "Imagine that, a beggar becoming a Reed." They both laughed. Lila froze, her chest tightening. Was that what everyone thought? That she didn't belong here? That night, as she sat by her window, she whispered to herself, "Maybe they're right." But just then she heard a knock. Ethan stood there holding 2 mugs of hot chocolate. "You're still awake?" he asked with a smile. She nodded silently. He sat beside her. You know, I used to look at this same city from this window every night. I thought I had everything, money, success, power. But when I lost my wife, I realized I had nothing left that mattered. Lila looked at him, eyes soft. I know what it's like to lose someone, she said quietly. I lost my mom too. She used to sell flowers. Said they reminded her that beautiful things grow even in dirty places. Ethan looked at her, and for a moment, he saw not just a poor girl, but a light his broken family desperately needed. He smiled faintly. Your mother was a wise woman. Before leaving, he said softly, You belong here. Lila, don't let anyone make you think otherwise. Her heart swelled, with warmth she hadn't felt in years. A few weeks later, tragedy almost shattered that new life. One afternoon, Alex went missing. The whole mansion panicked. Guards searched everywhere. The garden, the garage, the lake. Ethan's voice cracked as he shouted his son's name. Alex, where are you? But it was Lila who found him. Down by the old bridge, standing dangerously close to the edge, tears streaming down his face. Alex, she screamed. Don't move. He looked back, shaking. Mom used to bring me here, he said softly. I wanted to see her again. Lila's heart broke. She stepped forward slowly. Alex, I know you miss her, but she's watching you right now. And if you fall, she'll cry, just like your dad will. He sobbed, trembling. Lila took another step. You're not alone anymore. You have your dad, you have... Fiercely for a long moment he just stared. Then he whispered, Lila, and ran into her arms. She held him tightly, tears falling freely. Behind them, Ethan appeared, breathless, his face pale. When he saw Alex safe in her arms, he fell to his knees in relief. That night, after Alex was asleep, Ethan walked into the study carrying a small envelope. He handed it to Lila. Inside was a letter and legal papers. What's this? She asked. It's adoption approval, he said softly. It's time we made this official. Her breath caught. You mean? Yes, he said, his voice trembling. I wasn't just making a promise that day. You saved my son, Lila. You saved me. And I can't imagine this family without you. Tears streamed down her face as she covered her mouth, shaking her head in disbelief. Nobody's ever wanted me before, she whispered. Ethan smiled, his own eyes wet. Then let me be the first. He knelt down beside her, just like he did the first day they met, and held out his hand again. Welcome home, my daughter. Lila's tears turned into laughter. She hugged him tightly, a moment that healed two hearts at once. From that day forward, the Reed family wasn't known just for its wealth, but for something far greater, for kindness that changed lives. And Lila, the girl who once sold wilted flowers on the street, grew up to run a foundation, one that helped lost children find homes, just like she did. Because sometimes all it takes is one act of courage, one word of kindness, to change a life forever.